everyone. Thanks so much for joining me here today as we get to talk about one of my favorite subjects, comic books. My name is Jose. I love comic books. I love talking about them. I love sharing them with you. Feel free to follow me on social media if you would like. Links are in the description below. I've also posted a link to the Marvel fan site that'll have plot synopsis and character bios for these issues we're going to look at. So I am re-releasing in a one video format Amazing Spider-Man 298 through 307, sort of the first quarter of Todd McFarlane's Amazing Spider-Man run. I have released these before individually, but now we're going to make them into one video. Keep in mind that because these are older videos, I may have said some things that perhaps aren't true anymore or, whatever. So please don't hold that against me. Like and subscribe. I do thank you for listening. So we're going to start here with Amazing Spider-Man 298 from 1987. Todd McFarlane pencils and inks the cover, but not the inside. And you can see here the web. He was still doing, I believe, Incredible Hulk during this time. And you can see the web isn't quite what it is, but very nice cover indeed. I have two versions of this. I have a beat up version that I have when I bought this, and then I have a nicer version that I bought later in life. Here we go. So it's the same writer, David Michelinie or Michelinie, Todd says Michelinie, so I suppose that's what it is, but it's a CH, man. So I always say sh. So Michelinie to me. Todd McFarlane does the pencils and Bob McLeod does the inks. So Chance is our villain for these next two issues. So, like I said, in the description below, I have links to the Marvel database fan site where you can look at the plots. So, if you're looking at the art here, not quite Todd McFarlane-ish yet. Although you have the vertical covers that him and Frank Miller are the two guys that do the best vertical covers. Most people just, I don't know, I even find them very constricting. However, he really does a good job with them. Chance is an assassin, and he was hired to kill that dude. So. This Oren Conrad. So, and then of course Mary Jane. They're newlyweds. So, it's not quite. You're gonna be looking at this going, what the heck? Yes, everybody in the beginning drew differently, and it's not quite what you're used to. So. This isn't quite the Todd McFarlane Spider-Man that you've all seen, all these different things. This is his first issue, and it's not until 300 where he actually becomes the artist that things start to change a little bit. But here we go. And you can tell on the webbing that he just kind of the webbing's still evolving, so... Again, with the vertical covers, or not covers, panels. So, he's going to surprise Mary Jane. They got their apartment, I think it's in Chelsea. So, and, so he was going to, like I said, they're newlyweds, so he was gonna surprise her So this is our dude Chance. So and he's a big gambler as well, which is part of the Chance. But I love the villain, the short mustache, the whole shebang. So he loves gambling. So like I said, I'm not really going through the story very much, and you can get that on the database. I'll have the links in there where you can just look at the plot. It's a fan site, so if you're familiar with the Marvel database, love the Hitler mustache and the earring. That is so mid 80s. This, you can see the McFarlane tropes sort of forming here. You can definitely starting to see. Deduct the carpet from his fee. So you can just kind of see, like I said, the composition is kind of getting there, but the panel borders that he's so famous for are not quite there. I've also started his Hulk run, and I have covered, I think, about 4 issues so far as of this recording. So they're also located in the Todd McFarlane playlist. My So I love this part where they're connecting. Here's a blackout, and they sort of explain and see X Factor 25. So yeah, I'm trying to cover all of McFarlane's Marvel and DC work. And so if you check that out periodically, more videos will be added. I have the first issue he ever inked in that Detective Comics through the Batman Year 2, but I have not done the whole Batman Year 2 arc, but I hope to get to it. So it looks like Chance here has been double crossed. Love this panel here. And so at this time, this was just a costume. It was no longer the Venom. It wasn't the symbiote, but he kept the costume. I love the zipatones here. And of course, we get the first cameo of Venom here. This is Eddie Brock Venom. And you can see, but at this time, we hadn't revealed quite yet who he is. I love how he's just hidden, and then little by little, this was so creative. So love it. And so here we go to 299. And even 1 month in, notice the webbing, how more than even the first cover, how better designing it's getting. We'll look at the cover one more time here. This is more the early McFarlane, but he's starting to really get in there with all his little dots, or not dots, lines. And so again, in the inside, he is not the artist. He is only doing the pencils, and the credits were up here again, same as last issue. McFarlane is one of those artists that really influenced me early on. I just loved his art so much. And I really wish, one of the things that I really, really wish he did now, I know he's making gobs of money with the toy empire, and he still does Spawn, sort of. He publishes Spawn. He really doesn't do anything in there anymore. I really miss his drawing. He used to at least do the covers, but man, can't even get a cover from the dude now. It's just, um, you know, it's it's really hard because I'm not against people making money, but you know, he's made so much money now. Can't he quit what he's doing, sell his company and just go back to drawing? Yes, it's selfishly, but I would love for him to go back to do the art. I would buy it. It doesn't matter. I don't read like Spawn, for example. I don't read his his work. I just devour the pictures. All he has to do is draw it. So here's Eddie Murphy right here. And then this is the guy from Letterman, Paul something. I really don't know. But he was the music director. So he's asking Mary Jane's to dance. So like I said, I love it. This is one of those things he starts to do with um I love this. Love you won't see this. This is still very old comic book language, but eventually you see Jim Lee and Todd McFarlane kind of get away from some of the old marks that they made and start making new marks that everybody else then starts to try to imitate. Do not overfill. That's funny. So he just hikes there. And then the forest, and then not the forest. So, what is he swinging on? That would be a very tall tree. I don't think there's tall trees like that in New York. But hey, it's comics. I try to do this whenever I draw a car and they have their headlights on with this circle. I copied that. When I see something cool, I try to copy it. I can't. I I copy his art on certain pieces. So if you go on my Twitter or Instagram or whatever, um, I draw some of the characters the way he does. Like Hulk, I draw my Hulk like him. I draw some Spider-Man. Some of my Spider-Man sketches are like him. Not all of them, but some. But for the most part, and Spawn, whenever I draw Spawn, I draw it just like him. But my style is more like John Cassidy and Matt Wagner, using a lot of charcoal and dry brush. But boy, do I wish I could do like Todd McFarlane. But man, that is a lot of marks to put on something. So, but it's kind of fun to do it on a piece here or there. But unfortunately, just can't. So we're about to get to the big reveal where she walks in and thinks it's Peter, but it's actually Venom. And we get our first reveal. I bought these issues, so I have a few copies of this. I have a beat up copies that I've had since I was in middle school when this first came out, and then I have more better copies that I got as an adult. So yeah, our first reveal of Venom. So we're gonna be looking at the official first appearance of Venom. We have already covered Amazing Spider-Man 298 and 299, which featured two cameos. This features his first full appearance. Also, I have covered every issue from 314 to I've covered all of Todd McFarlane's issues from 314 on up, and I decided to go back and cover the 298 all the way to 313. So there's a playlist with all of Todd McFarlane's stuff. So here we go. So this I bought right off. Comic books were sold in the 80s in supermarkets and in convenience stores everywhere. So you could go to 7-Eleven or Circle K. I bought mine off the supermarket at Publix in Orlando. And I still have that tethered copy. Yes, I know how much this is worth. I actually have repurchased this, and I actually have a very decent copy. However, I do have my original in cover falling apart because I looked at this stuff so often. This is an iconic cover. Just absolutely amazing. The webbing isn't quite what you will see it become, but it's definitely a start. So, all right, so we're going to pick up sort of where we left off. We see Mary Jane here, and she has just been frightened by Eddie Brock. And if you go back, you will see Eddie showing up. Now, also of note, this is Todd McFarlane's first issue inking Spider-Man. So Todd McFarlane was a penciler, and his first artwork was in Batman Year 2, Part 4. I forgot the issue, Detective Comic Books, but I have covered I have two versions of that story. I have covered just the single issue. It's in the Todd McFarlane playlist. I have also covered it as part of the Batman Year 2. So feel free to check it out. So, David Michelinie or Michelinie is the writer, and then here's the rest of the credits. You can see here Tom DeFalco is the new editor-in-chief, as Jim Shooter has been replaced. And you can see the whole hoopla. There's a bunch of stuff. There's stories on YouTube and lots of articles about Jim Shooter's time at the end of Marvel. So Peter comes in. She's still frightened because of Venom, and sees that it's Spider-Man. Of course, he is wearing the black costume still, and but it is not the symbiote. It is just a regular costume that he decided to still wear even after the symbiote. So she's happy to see Peter and gives him a huge hug. So, and she's just relieved. For his first, not his first inking job, but for an early inking, McFarlane does really good. McFarlane is such a talented artist. So, she's telling him, Venom knew everything about them. They were married. He wanted to hurt him, and that he grew the mask that it would just slip on, and he wasn't human. So he tells him to stay there. He's gonna go see what's going on, and he wonders, what kind of a monster would do that. So we're now in another part in New York where Eddie Brock has shown up. This isn't quite the Venom that you will be seeing. It's still under development. So remember, this is his first full appearance. So and he wants to kill Peter. He blames Peter for for the bad stuff that's happened to him. So we'll cover his origin soon. So one of the cool things about McFarlane is how he does his panel layouts. I love all this. It just makes it so interesting. So, also another thing McFarlane does is these vertical panels. So, um, Mary Jane has fallen asleep. Peter's awake thinking, and he thinks it's his old costume. Of course, he is the symbiote. I have covered Secret Wars, which also does include this, so feel free to check that out in the playlist. I have not covered this version or this stuff happening at Spider-Man, but I'll get to it. So, Secret Wars I've covered. The early stuff with Spider-Man I have not covered. So, it's just too much, and as you can see, I try to post these videos during the week on weekdays, but Thanksgiving, as of this recording, was last week. This is probably won't be posted till probably January, I would bet. But it just I'm a single person here, kind of just doing it as I can. So I have a full-time job, so I do this for fun. So we're going through with the origin of Venom here, or the origin of the symbiote, and how they the Fantastic Four removed it using the Sonics, and how it tried to rebond with them, and how the Sound was able to get it, and so he thought it was dead, but now he's starting to think that maybe it wasn't. So Mary Jane wakes up, and Peter says that he's concerned that they know who it is. And she's like, hey, let's just go to sleep for now, But this here is a photocopy, I would most likely guess. So he wakes up. I like how bulky he looks. So Peter's supposed to be like thin. So anyway, they're gonna move, or Mary Jane wants them to move, and she says here that the Bedford Towers, which we'll get to what happened, and that there's a condo, and Peter's like, goodness, it takes months to find a good place, but she says that she wants to move there because this place frightens her, since Venom already knows about it. So he agrees, and so Peter agrees, and you can see her embracing him. She tells him she'd like to get some pictures of what the place looks like before they move, and she says he'll pick up his camera at the apartment. So, and she'll get help with movers. So he's gonna use the trip to the apartment to get the cover for his errand, which is that device from the Fantastic Four. Again, McFarlane's starting out. You can see how awesome he's starting to do. The web is still not there. You can see it's just him doing just bunches of lines, but we've all seen how cool that webbing eventually does become. So he goes to his old apartment. He's going to take precautions. And here it's revealed that they got that sonic blasters from the Fantastic Four. And so there's a message in the answer machine. And if you're listening to this, answer machines was what it existed before voicemail. So it was analog. You actually put a tape in there. If you want to know what a tape is, go to YouTube and look it up. So love the Sony placement here. So he's getting dressed, wearing his costume underneath it, and he's gonna walk around. But he says, man, if his spider sense isn't going off, but it feels like he's being followed. And you can see here that he is, but because he's wearing the Venom costume, he's changing his appearance all the time, or at least his clothes. So he's wearing different. So and so they see he's going into the back alley, and so he goes in and gone. Another great um, composition here by McFarlane. Look at that, very cool. And so we're now at the Bedford Towers, and so it's huge, it's a luxurious. So um, he's gonna snap pictures, and she says his mood's down because she makes so much money than he does. So he's just feeling down because he can't contribute the way she can. She's of course rich and he's not. So she decides to take a pictures of her, and he's trying to do that whole, because she is a model. He's trying to do that whole modeling thing, but he just feels silly. So you can see here she's gonna undress, and she says, "Hey, how about some for our private collection?" And of course she disrobes. I do like how they show you without showing you. I believe they should do this more often. Nowadays, everybody just shows you everything, and for some reason, I don't know. I like this, the way this is done better. So that night, they are having supper with Aunt May and with Nathan. Nathan Lubinsky. I couldn't remember his last name here. So anyway, Aunt May's taking care of everything, and she tells Mary Jane, offers to help, but she says no, stay with Peter. And meanwhile, some of these neighbors are doing jokes, and she goes to Aunt May and says, why are you distancing? Why are you distancing from us, or herself from them? And she says she doesn't mean to, but she wants the marriage to work, and very many nosy relatives, uh, butt in and make things bad. And of course, Mary Jane tells him that she's not nosy, just cares, and Peter would be crushed if you dropped from their lives, and so would she. And she finds that very touching and goes and hugs. And she asks if she can be invited to the new place. And he says that he'll have the invitations engraved. So very touching there. You can see Mary Jane there kind of in the back. So we're here at a church. This is the church, of course, where the bell sort of killed the symbiote, or at least appeared to kill the symbiote. And so this is where they plan on ending Peter. So there's a cop there who tells him to stop. And Venom, you can see here, starting to leak through, and goes to the young officer here, and he's going to shoot, but Venom uses that to silence the gun and ends up choking the poor kid to death. So he says that he doesn't like killing innocents, but he can't let things get in the way of revenge. So next day, everybody's moving. This is Harry Osborn and Flash Thompson here. So, and then of course Robbie, like this person here. The guy's hairdo is radical. So, just some 80s language there. And all these people. I like this person. Do hurry with those boxes, geez. Watching you carry them is positively exhausting. And he's like, very good, sir. So, because she called in some of her friends. But anyway. And these are Peter's old neighbors. And of course, so, all right. So, we are kind of just a little bit in the story portion of things as we're trying to move the story along here. So Robbie's asking Peter if he's giving him any any thoughts to his suggestion that he get out of photography, and Peter says he has, and he's thinking about going back into the realm of science. But he says, "Hey, I have to." You see here, kind of his. He sees something, and he asks if he needs any help, and he says, "No, I better handle this alone." And of course, it's Venom in the other side. So he goes, gets dressed, and off he goes. Again, McFarlane didn't drew this. Most likely, it is a photocopy. So, and sees Eddie Brock going into that abandoned building. He's going after him. Of course, it was a trap, and doesn't realize that the spider sense. He thinks the spider sense will warn him, but of course it doesn't. And then boom, or whum, and so here comes Venom. Now, of course, this is very different. You're used to the teeth and the or the hole, but that comes later. You know, as McFarlane's style changes. But for now, that's sort of what he looked like. And then he takes off and he says it's Eddie Brock, who will have his origin kind of here, but blames Peter for destroying his career and his column. And what happened was during the Sin Eater, he had written an article where another person had confessed to being the Sin Eater. So he was telling the story of who the person who had confessed, but it turned out that you'll see here. So this person here had an exclusive with Venom here, and Spider-Man's trying to get that little Sonic thing, but turns out that it was not that person. It was somebody else who was the Sin Eater, and he was fired. You know, so he was fired for something that's not his fault. Somebody else had confessed. He followed the story, so but he's basically blamed Spider-Man because he's the one that butted it, and no one would have known that other person wasn't the Sin Eater. But Spider-Man just kept at it, which of course is what heroes do. But Brock, then that's where he blames. So he tried to do all these other things to see if he could relieve the stress and the anger. But he says none of it worked because he kept thinking of Spider-Man. Every time he had the dumbbell, he just kept thinking about the neck. And so he was just so angry. And you can see here, he's still reaching for it. And he's a Catholic, so he was going to contemplate suicide, which is a sin to the Catholics. But that night, where the where Spider-Man fought the symbiote, the costume sort of melted and ended up merging with Brock, and realized they both had hatred toward the same person. So a match made in heaven or hell, however you want to look at it. So Spider-Man grabs or Ghost makes his move and goes, "Oh, want to fight?" Now you can see again normal teeth here. We haven't gotten quite to the other. So goes through from that punch in the previous panel. Again, vertical panels. So we go to the start or to the fight. Again, I love during this era you could just put thought balloons to kind of move more to the story or add a little more reading to it, so you wouldn't just have the action per se. And so as the two kind of just go at it. So here's the Sonic. So he finally uses it. Only now it looks like the symbiote is completely bonded with him. So he realizes that he can't kill the symbiote without killing Brock. So he's gonna try to regroup, think of another plan. But Venom recovers, grabs Spider-Man as he's trying to run away, pulls him in, and so very cool. And so he punches Spider-Man. I love this whop, and then the panel goes black. So when he awakes, you can see all this webbing, and Brock is dressed as a priest, and so you can see he's a little bit deranged. So he's going to he's waiting for midnight so that when the bell rings, it kills him and crushes him to death. So just the same way that he killed or he tried to kill the symbiote. And you can see here that the lever is starting to move, so he's going to force his way out. And you can see here he's pushing against the webbing of Venom and ends up being able to hold it. And then Venom realizes that something's wrong. He should have heard something by now. So Spider-Man was able to slow it down and then went free. Finally does hit, causing very loud. And of course, Venom's coming up. So he's going to try to get away. And so he realizes he may have to fight to the death, because that's his only way for surviving. So he hits him, and then he tries to use the webbing, and he cuts it. He tries to do it again. He keeps cutting it. What he's basically do is, remember, this webbing is actually physically part of Venom. So he's making him use as much of it as he can, and ends up hitting the pavement but not dying. And he now has to find a way to contain him. And so Peter calls to the Bedford Towers, has security, tells him who he is, and he wonders if he could pass the message to my wife. And she says that to tell her that he had a photography news story and that he'll be home soon, and to tell her that she's okay. But he ends up going to, at this time, Fantastic Four headquarters, which is Four Freedoms Plaza. And this thing during this time was very rocky. So, but they have Venom put in here. It's some kind of stasis. So they'll hold him for now until they can figure out a way to do it. And so he says to Spider-Man, next time bring your people a little earlier, because apparently it's late at night and he's ready to go to sleep. So back at the Bedford Towers here, he tells Mary Jane everything that happened and asks what's wrong. And so he's going to tell her that it's the costume, that after what happened with Venom, she's not comfortable. She's having PTSD, and that costume makes her feel uncomfortable. So he takes it off and throws it in the garbage, and finds another costume that he had during the Spider-Man versus Wolverine. He had picked up a costume, and so he'll be using that for a little bit. So they go and embrace, and then we get the very famous early panel of McFarlane drawing the red and blue. Now, this was I don't know why they never collected this for the trade, but this should be red because this is the spider in the back. But for some reason, they kept it blue even on the collection. So, and then we have a great. I don't know whether this was drawn or photocopied and blown up, but it's pretty cool. But anyway, so now we go to Amazing Spider-Man 301 from 1988. We get a redo of the cover from 300, only this time it's the red and blue costume. From this point on, except for a few issues here and there, McFarlane will ink himself. So he won't be working with an inker. But there will be a few. There will be just a few where there is. And I think here you can see that I think he missed a piece here. But great cover. So it's nice to see the black and white one and then the red and blue after. David Michelinie or Michelinie, depending how you want to, is the writer. Todd McFarlane does the pencils and the inks. Rick Parker is a very good letterer. So, the Sable Gauntlet. So, these guys work for Silver Sable. I love the guy here in the mustache. This is how McFarlane actually, it's very funny. All these different artists, how you can tell who by how they draw people. John Romita Jr., you can clearly tell when he's drawing somebody running. It's pretty cool to see the styles and stuff. So you can see these guys are trapped. They take out a shield. So and it's just paint. They're trying to make a point. So, yeah, this looks like Cyclops. So he says, how do we do? And says, those fumes should tell you that, Mr. McKay. They're harmless, but had this been a real danger situation, those paintballs would have been filled with poison gas. So, they protect themselves from the obvious, but the subtle could have killed them. I'm afraid you failed the test. And then, which means, Mr. Cruz, that we succeeded. And we got McFarlane's legendary vertical panels. Nobody does them quite like him. Him and Frank Miller. So this guy says, we succeeded. And so this Cruz guy is the head of security. He says, not necessary, Mr. Perret. The Wild Pack is good, but some terrorists could be better. And Silver Sable's like, humph. And so, he wants to hire Silver Sable to be the one to actually do the next test, just to make sure. And he says they'll give her a 50,000 bonus, and she's like, I hate this. This isn't what I want to do, and blah blah blah. She says they're like, again, vertical panels here. And they'll go, all right, 100,000. Pride must be prickly to hurt, so when swallowed. And she's like, I'll take the contract. And it's funny because internal monologue tells you she's not taking it because of the money. But all right, so we're on the Upper West Side. And Peter and Mary Jane are moving into their new condominium or new place or whatever, apartment. And so Mary Jane is telling people where to move stuff. Or not people, but Peter. And McFarlane is such a good cartoonist. His style is so distinct. I don't know how to... I mean, you all can see it. It's just, it's so cool. So Mary Jane has to go to a photo shoot, and so Peter's gonna go check out the photography course at the university, and Mary Jane goes, "In your Spiderman costume, are you expecting trouble from the synchronized swim team?" And he says he's got a little errand to run first. So, and he is putting the costume underneath his regular clothes. So, Mary Jane's gonna go to her place, and he's gonna go to his. So off we go. He continues this throughout his Spawn run. These vertical panels of buildings and stuff like that, and Greg Capullo actually begins to do this as well. So her and her uncle are having words over the wild pack, but Spider-Man is here because Sable had called him. And so, oh, she didn't call him. He showed up to ask questions. He wanted to know why he had sent the wild pack after her, and she goes, someone had hired her to do it. So this took place in Spectacular Spider-Man 128. He says nothing personal. He's like, what? And he's like, I hate being hunted like a buck during deer season. So her butler comes in, and when these two arrive, his spider sense goes off, so he knows one of these two is bad. So, and she's like, "Excuse me, next time use the front door." And he's like, "I should have warned her, but whatever. It's her problem. Let her figure it out herself." The webbing is still a work in progress, but he eventually does get to it. And so this gentleman's looking for Peter, but the doorman tells him that he just missed him, and he's went to his school. I love these short little mustaches. Very nobody wears them, but you see them in comic books all the time. So, and so Empire State University, which is a made-up school where Peter went, and as he's walking by, he's recognized by Dr. Sloan here. He asks him if he could go see his students in he's physics because they don't seem to be understanding. Peter says he's a little rusty, that he couldn't, but he does, and here he is explaining them to explaining them how it works. First, you have to understand that electrons are always on the move, sort of like Pee Wee Herman after a Mexican dinner. So, and so this is Mary Jane's big rival, Topaz. And she's like, Mary Jane, darling, I love what Sandy is doing to your hair. It was so stylish when I used it for a cover shot last year. And Mary Jane's like, really? I must have missed that issue of Kettle Quarterly. So, and so here Peter is leaving the school. I love the way his hair is done. I love the marks that McFarlane kind of just does. So it's very funny how he developed the style, and even to this day, he just adds now. Now he adds more ticks. He had less ticks here, but the way he does the hair, is still, when you look at his drawings, they still look that way. And the eyes, kind of that rectangle, still does them. So Peter says something's still nagging him. He's just curious. He doesn't want to hassle anymore with Silver Sable, but he's curious as to what was going on. And here's the gentleman that was looking for Peter earlier, but he just missed him again. So he's looking for Peter, obviously. So, and here goes Peter as Spider-Man. So, and basically, she's going to do the same thing the other her people were doing. So, and this person here says, I'll be monitoring from the technical van. And so she's going to see if she can get through the way that her people failed to do. McFarlane and his poses, man, amazing. And here you can see he sort of so one of the things you'll notice here is he really bolded the on the webbing. If you look here, it's a little bit more bold as far as the line that he's using. So he's like he checked Pruitt out, and Pruitt was the head of the company. He says he seems legit, but Cruz, who's the head of security, he said it just found him puzzling. He couldn't find anything on him earlier than 3 years ago. So he thinks, even though it doesn't prove anything, that it there's probably problems. So he's gonna go in, and of course, as soon as he does that, his spider sense goes in, and there is a he's got a security system. So he doesn't see anything, but suddenly he sees like light coming from the seams. So there's some kind of compartment there, and so she's gonna take the elevators, and there's all these lasers. Man, they're really focused on security, and so she disables them, and she she thought they were paint, but these are not paint. So they're using real ammo. So something's off. And so Spider-Man's going to try to peek behind the wall. He realizes that the telephone is connected to it. So there has to be a switch. And when he hits the switch, boom, Cruz is a Nazi. So they had mentioned before that that organization was Nazi hunters. So this is sort of payback. Great. Great panel here with Spider-Man looking. He's really getting into his own, just slowly but surely. So same thing, she's gonna try to go through, and here you can see that it hits it, and again she thinks it's paint, but they're using real ammo. And so Spider-Man's reading all these letters. Frank Cruz was actually Franz Kraus. He's the son of a Nazi war criminal. When his dad basically died in prison, Cruz was going to get revenge. So, and he realizes that he's using real ammunition because he wants Silver Sable dead. And so as she's walking by, here comes like this little flying thing here. Again, this just seems ludicrous, but we're just going to go with it. Part of the reason that I'm just kind of not reading the way I've been doing is just a lot of these things are kind of silly. So I just kind of am just giving you the overall story. So this thing has, if you can see here, has a needle, and it hits the plant, and then it kills the plant like immediately. You can see the plant dying. And so here comes Spider-Man. Great panel. Great pose. He gets her, his spider sense is going. And so, again, the security, so he's going to have to find another way. He breaks through the window. And so Silver Sable makes it to the security room, and you can see here that they're letting us know this is the button that she has to press. And she's about to hit it, but Spider-Man stops her with his web. And so he's trying to tell her that if she presses the button, it would kill her. And how does she know? And he's trying to explain it to her, and she thinks that he is part of the security test, part of the test here. Love how McFarlane. I love this. This is another trope of his. showing the blast from guns. He does this all the time, so and he's like, "Okay, you're not listening." And then kaboom. So she throws her ninja stars at him. You can see that McFarlane's still not all there yet. Like you can see here, sort of in the way the face is and all that kind of stuff. So, and so here we go, kind of one to the other, and then she tells him that Frank Cruz is friends Kraus. So he finally, once he has her attention, he says, "Here's the explosives." And so, she says, "Thank you for," even though she's not very humble. So, and Spider-Man's like, "Gratitude from the Silver Sable. Hey, don't mention it." And she's like, "I won't." So this guy here says they disabled all the explosives, and he says that she'll be paid her full fee, and also that he'd like to commission her to bring him into justice. And she says she'll have to check her schedule, but they can work on it. And Spider-Man's like, "Great. She gets big bucks and another job. I saved a day, and I don't even get car fare." How typical. The eyes, we're gonna work toward getting those nice big eyes. It's still not there, but you're starting to kind of see what this is. You can already sense little by little. So Peter gets home, and this dude is now waiting for him. His name is Martin Jacoby, and he is a research emporia in Kansas. And he says Dr. Connors recommended him. Dr. Connors is the lizard, and he's basically offering him a job as a chief assistant, and that job is for him. So thus ends the issue. So we're going to be looking at Amazing Spider-Man 302 from 1988, drawn by Todd McFarlane and written by David some people say Michelinie, I say Michelinie. It doesn't matter. So McFarlane drew this issue. This is his second issue inking. He did he was mostly a penciler. I am also covering his Incredible Hulk run, which predated this. So, where we left off, we now have Peter in Kansas. Huge trope from McFarlane in which he does a close-up of the face. One of the other things that's really cool about McFarlane are these ticks. And so they are recruiting Peter to move to Kansas. And so great panel here. POV from that gentleman showing him the stuff. McFarlane not skimping on the details. I have covered his later Spider-Man run. I've also covered his issues of he did a limited series with DC. I think it's called Invasion. I have those also on the McFarlane playlist. I'm covering his Hulk run. I'm gonna get to his Infinity Inc. run, and then unfortunately that's so much as he really did. I've got his also his Batman Year 2 run. He did the 3 of the 4 issues. Alan Davis did the first one. And after that, I guess it's just the early Spawn issues, because this man quits drawing, goes just into the inking, because he wants to, head his little his toy empire, which, by the way, I'm a capitalist. I understand, make money where you can, but I'm also greedy, and I really want him drawing. It is, to me, it's the reason I follow him. So, all right. So we got this dude here. His name is Martin Jacoby, and he's basically showing Peter the ropes of all that they're doing there and how much they would love to have him. Um, I love cartoony McFarlane. I truly, this guy changed the world. This is the building where they all work, and Jacoby's kind of telling him all about the job. And these two are fighting. He's doing construction. This guy's like, hey, these machines are messing with my experiments. And he's telling him, we gotta, it's hard to put up a building with some destruction. And he's like, find a way or I'll have you fired. And this guy's like, fire this. And so he tells him this is Wes Cassidy here. He's, you only introduce the names because they're gonna be in the story. So, it's a trope on comic books. Don't bring something into it unless you're gonna use it. So, he's the best construction boss in the state, but this guy here is Royce Nero, and he was with the government. He's new to the private sector, and he is volatile. Here you have a badoom, and great job showing the shaking. And so this guy's telling him that there's a fire, basically. There's gas bottles are stored, and so he's like, get everybody out. They have an emergency. Everybody evacuates. Peter says, this looks like this is a job for the fire department. But since they're not around, and you can see him pulling a Superman here, which I think is just awesome. This is early. This isn't quite. You can see here he's figuring out the webbing. And he'll get to it, and you can even see he has. You're not used to that round head. He eventually does get to it, but and so then all of a sudden he sees all these I think explosions, and he's like, what the heck? And he can see someone running, and it's that Wes Cassidy, and he obviously has superpowers, and he's grabbing the insulation, throwing it in there. And he's like, well, I hope somebody hasn't spotted me. And then they both see each other, and they leave. They're like, uh-oh. And so, and he tell him this is an isolated, he's like, event. He's like, I understand that accidents can happen anywhere. And so then he's like, what about Mr. Super Guy here? So, here's Dr. Nero. Again, we knew that something was going to happen here, and he's created some kind of glove thing here. He's got a rock and was managing to destroy it. McFarlane is so good. It's so sad to see him no longer drawing. And he's like, I'm almost ready now. So back in New York, we got Silver Sable. She was the one we had on issue 301. Again, with the vertical panels. This is going to be a trope of McFarlane, a vertical panel with buildings. Greg Capullo even continues it in the Spawn run. So this with the buildings and this here all the time. So McFarlane basically spends this time kind of setting everything up so that he doesn't have to, show it again. So, so she was working out. They brought one of her wounded, what are they called? Not the frat pack, but the wild pack. I don't know. And they're, She says they found France Cross, but the organization is bigger, more dangerous than they could have imagined. And so she says, I'm going to have to enlist a special operative. And he's like, cough, cough. And she's like, dismiss, kind of disregarding him. Um, so we are now got this nice little suburban home. Now, keep in mind that this is Kansas. I've been in Kansas. I live in Nebraska. People, there are no hills in Kansas. I don't care where you're at. There is no hills. It is flat, 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 flat. So, McFarlane just imagined some hills, but there are no hills. So, his family's playing football and love their the commentary like, "Hey, Alf's coming in," and you can see the Elmer Fudd shirt, and then realizes Spider-Man is watching him. And he's like, "How the heck did you know I was here?" Because it's the second time, and he goes, "Well, it's a long story." Uh, I love this. This just did not happen. If you look at comic books during this time, people did not draw like Todd McFarlane. People did not draw like Jim Lee. Jim Lee is John Byrne on steroids. He basically took what he learned from John Byrne and Neil Adams and all these things and just exploded. But Jim Lee's a different cat. Todd McFarlane, this with the ticks, it just didn't happen. People kind of did the inking. You just didn't see people just do the this, and it just caused difference. I mean, you look at it now and you're like, well, everybody draws like this. No, not back then. They didn't. Now they do. Again, putting frigging. This is not Kansas. I'm telling you, I've been to Kansas. This is not Kansas. So he's like, I want to hear then that story. And so again, working on the webbing. I don't know where the heck he's attached to because it's Kansas and it just doesn't work. But all right, so he's gonna go and tell him his story, and um, he's saying, how he was a foreman. Essentially, there was a jackrabbit that apparently he got Spider-Man's powers, but from a rabbit. It's just this dude deserves his own series. I don't know how they never. I don't know much, but I don't think they ever brought this dude back. But they really should because he's Spider-Man, but with a rabbit, and so he's been trying to keep that hidden. So he's like, "Is there anything you can do to help me? Sorry, wish I could." Well, he says he felt better getting things off his chest. Love the inking. Again, people did not do this. People didn't draw like him. And it's funny when you see how his evolution will happen. So, all right. And we got the Sandman who went, again, a vertical panel establishing where we're at. Does the thing with the trees here. Very cool. The Sandman got locked. He's using his sand powers to let himself in. And there's a silver sable. And she says she has a business proposition. Another really cool thing is this is when he's a good guy. Was his face turn. But of course, he goes kind of back to being a villain. And so this here is a little bit of photocopy and then kind of inking in the background with a card, with drawing in all that stuff. So there's Mary Jane, very fashionist, saying how much he loves it in Kansas, and she's like, okay, and she's like, oh man, because she wants to stay in New York because that's where her life is. So And so we are back to Kansas. I like how comic books these things just move from bit to bit to bit. And so he hears a knock on the door, and it's Nero, and he's wearing like this suit, and he's got that glove on, and he's like, "What's going on?" And he's like, "Collecting dues. Spent 20 years with the government developing riot control equipment, but I was retired when they decided my inventions were too extreme, too fatal. So I decided to make my brilliance pay. I used my time here to turn defensive devices into offensive ones. Now I'm going to take my first payment, the priceless plans for the secret projects in your safe." So, because people can't just be good. So, um, Peter's being taken in, and there's an emergency, and so he gets out because Spider-Man's gonna be needed, and they're like, "What the heck are you doing in Kansas?" And he's like, "I'm on a world tour," and so the guy shoots at Spider-Man with his glove. He misses, and Spidey manages to get him. Again, McFarlane kind of figuring out the webbing, grabs him, tosses him goes through the wall. That's very, very good panel. Uses some kind of liquid thing to imprison this guy, and it solidifies this here. It's harder than steel. So, uh, Spider-Man punches him, and this guy grabs something here, and using some kind of sonar, I would imagine. And Spider-Man's falling. This guy knows he can help him, but he doesn't want people to know he's got superpowers, and he just can't. And Spider-Man eventually beats him on his own. He says, "I'm sorry, I just couldn't do it." Spider-Man says he knows he might have done the same thing if he'd been born in his shoes. We do what we have to, all of us, and then we live with it, as he walks away. So they arrest this guy. He says that, they how come Spider-Man was there, and Spider-Man's like, he's been spotted in England, Germany recently. Maybe there's a whole squad of them running around. So he says, "I hope this hasn't soured your impression of them." He's like, "You kidding me? I love it here." And so when he gets back to New York, he tells Mary Jane how much he absolutely loved this, and how much fun he had. And she tells him, New York's her home. Her friends are there. Her career is too. She doesn't know if she can give that up, even to make a dream come true. So we end the issue with a what now? So, Amazing Spider-Man 303 from 1988. And you can already see the webbing has evolved in just a couple of issues. Not quite what we're going to be seeing in the future, but definitely here. And you can see the Sandman and Silver Sable are back in the fold. It's a little bit sad not to see Todd McFarlane draw anymore. Not with consistency. I know he's got his toy empire, but really do miss his art. I used to buy Spawn just for the covers, but he doesn't do the covers anymore. So he's got, I believe now, as of this recording in 2025, he's got like 4 issues of Spawn out on a monthly basis. I would buy all 4 if he provided one cover a month for each one. But He doesn't, so I don't. Unfortunately, I don't buy Spawn just for that. And I think not having his beautiful art makes the world a sadder place. But great cover here of the Sandman here getting Spidey. So we'll have to look inside to see what this is all about. Great, great splash page here. David Michelinie slash Michelinie is the writer, with Todd doing both the pencils and the inks. Um, Again, you can see now that the over the last couple issues, the webbing was a little bit messy, but you can now see that he's definitely starting to get the hang of it, and it's becoming much better. Um, I curse him for this too because when I draw Spider-Man, I do this web. He was such a huge inspiration. My Spider-Man is the same as his. So, um, let me just go back here because some stuff had already happened. So, he's thinking about, if you remember from last issue, they offered him that job in Kansas. He really wants it, but Mary Jane doesn't want to move, and so he's pondering what to do. So, and so we bring up the Sable because that's who is going to be in this issue, as you saw on the cover. And he goes, "Why couldn't I have been an international bounty hunters like the Silver Sable? All she has to do is about tracking some neo-Nazi who wants to kill her. That's simple, straightforward. No, I always wanted to be a scientist. So when I was asked to take that research job out in Kansas, it was like offering water to a thirsty man, except that glass was filled with brine." Um, Great. Look at this. Just the build. It's beautiful. And then he does this, which I absolutely love. Instead of offering all that detail, he just does the reverse silhouette. So, all right. And so, of course, we get to the part where Mary Jane just doesn't want to move. So, he's going into his apartment, and Mary Jane is sleeping, and he turns off the TV. She wakes up, and she's like, "Hey, I was waiting. Did you get any good pictures to sell to the Bugle?" And he's like, no. Um, do you guys like early McFarlane? Because I sort of do. Although I like all periods McFarlane, even super early McFarlane when he was somebody else, when somebody else was inking him. His pencils were so unique. He is such a cartoonist, and I do mean cartoonist. Look at how he draws people. Look at the eyes. It's just, this is so great. He does these vertical panels and is able to just convey the stuff. So, um, he's kind of talking about what his concerns are, and she's like, "Hey, we should just go to bed and worry about it tomorrow." And Peter's like, "I like the way you think." So, all right. So then the next day, Sandman is kind of doing the exercise. This was during his face turn. So we all know Sandman was a villain, but then he becomes a hero. Then back, this is what happens. So heel face, heel face. We just kind of revolve around. It's what makes interesting stories. So he beats up that robot there. Um, One of the greatest heel turns, in my opinion, was Hulk Hogan turning heel when he went back to WCW in the 90s. Hogan had always been Hogan actually was a heel when he started with, but during the 80s when WWE or WWF at that time, Hulk Hogan was this massive hero. And but we were going into the 90s, and his whole shtick just wasn't working during the whole say your prayers, eat your vitamins, all that kind of stuff. So he goes into WCW. his agent doesn't want him turned into heel because he thinks that's gonna be bad for his career. Hogan was doing movies and things like that. He was an early version, a cheaper version of The Rock, you should say. Like, he was doing a lot of like made-for-TV movies, that kind of stuff. So, Hogan, um, did like the idea because it gave something to do. Like the character evolved. You know, he wasn't stuck in that whole, I'm a superhero kind of thing. So, um, in WCW, here comes Hogan and betrays. Was it Macho Man? It was just betrays and becomes a heel. Joins the Scott. Oh my goodness gracious, he passed away. He was Razor Ramon in WWE, and Kevin Nash and Scott Hall, and started that whole NWO, and it resonated. And I wish that one of the big two had the balls to do that to one of their top characters. And I don't mean like Batman bringing a Batman from another dimension like they did with the Batman Who Laughs. I'm talking about making Bruce Wayne or Clark Kent or somebody, or Peter, even Spiderman, somebody turned them into a heel. Watch, I mean, and it can be a temporary thing. These are characters, for God's sakes. They always make villains, even Doctor Doom, they had a face turn. Brian Bendis in the infamous Iron Man even had Doctor Doom turn face. So why can super bad people like Venom and Doctor Doom and everybody else, how come they can all have face turns, but you can't give Spider-Man a heel turn? Is it really that difficult to give one of the, and I'm not talking about having a rogue superhero go heel. That's not impactful. A minor superhero is nothing. I'm talking about, they did with Green Lantern, but then they chickened out and created that whole parallax thing that he was invaded. No, screw that. You say Green Lantern is a heel, and they should have just gone with that. They always want to give themselves an out of things. No, just have Superman say enough is enough and take over the planet. Oh, think of the friggin' stories that you'd have to say. In DC, you already have very many versions of these things, but goodness gracious, I think that we I don't know. I think you can just tell much better stories if you would just great vertical panel here. Um Turn some of these characters heel. So, all right, Peter Parker is going into it, and there's this announcer for Spider-Man in the Daily Bugle from Silver Sable, and Peter's like, "Oh, great! I need money." So, and Mary Jane's in a photo shoot because she was a model during this time. Great, I think, by Todd McFarlane. Absolutely beautiful, beautiful. All right, and so the photographer's like, "Hey, you don't seem into this shoot." Again, look at the cartooniness. Look at the big. McFarlane is a cartoonist, a true cartoonist. Um, the big look at this. It's just gorgeous. He's not just drawing. The I don't know how to describe it, but anyway, of course, Mary Jane's thinking about Peter, and then she's like, "Do I really love him that much that she's willing to give up her life for that?" So, again, another vertical panel here. McFarlane, if you take a look at that thing, you'll see that McFarlane does a lot of buildings and stuff. He likes to set that. So, He's at the embassy, and Spider-Man's reading the paper, and of course, there's a Hulk story. He was sort of still finishing out his Hulk run, and so there's the Silver Sable. So, and of course, he's gonna get paid. She's gonna go after that guy that tried to kill her. Of course, here's the Sandman, and so, um, of course, he's turned face. So Spider-Man thinks it's gonna be weird, but that's all right. Um, and so off he goes. I love this. Hidden gunmen on the roof. Either restrictions on the Japanese imports are getting real strict, or Silver's intelligence reports were right on the money. So he's going inside. Of course, this image here is the same one that was ended up using for the corner box for a little bit. Um, and so I love this. This is a great one here, and I love how he blacked out the face. It's just so cool. So um, the thing breaks. He ends up falling in there, and so um, Spider-Man is disables that guy here, and so um, they got some drugs here, heroin or cocaine, and so there's that Kraus guy, and so they're about to work with the Kingpin here, and it's such a trope, but Nazis, because of just the type of people that they are and who they represent, they always make the greatest villains. There's no such thing as a good Nazi. So, um, I love this part here too with the coloring. Instead of blacking him out with the inking, they just colored it different. Is this not cool? It just I don't know. I think this is so cool. Such a uh, so original. I mean, you can see the layouts that it was um gonna he was gonna color it black and just opted to leave it there. Great choice, particularly early on in his inking phase. So and so she goes, she can't take it anymore, and she's just gonna have to live with the consequences of what she's due. So it looking like they're already gonna divorce and move out. So that's sort of what we're getting at here. So Spider-Man says what he saw there, and that there's a big army. Um, and she says, "You earned your fee, Spider-Man. Your participation is not required anymore." And she's going in. All right. And so, great panel here again. Just, this is what made McFarlane so huge back in the day. Comic books were just not drawn like this. Now you see this and you're like, everybody, you've seen this before, so you may already be a little, um, you may be a little bit like used to that, but back then, this just didn't happen. So Spider-Man and was gonna go away, but Sandman's like, I feel like whooping somebody, and he works for his pay, and he's like, they're both nuts, and he decides whatever, so he joins them too, and so all three of them are gonna go, and then she starts barking orders, so he's like, all the time with orders, so. Sandman is incredibly hard to kill because he's made out of sand. So, oh, great drawing there. These panels, see, this is what I mean. Look at this. Nobody did this. Um, Look at that. Absolutely wonderful. And so, and he always, instead of aiming straight, he always did this. Just imagine, just this change of perspective. makes this so much better than if the hand was going straight at you. So, um, just beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. A lot of action. This is another, look at this. Just another absolutely gorgeous, gorgeous. Instead of the shadow leaving it and then they color it a different shade or just absolutely brilliant. And look at this panel here, this vertical one. Uh, Wonderful. Again, I wish he would draw more. I know most of this video has just been me kind of talking about different things, more so than the story, but the story is very simple. And so we're just really looking at McFarlane's beautiful art, which is absolutely magnificent. So look at this. He's starting with the ticks. It's just um, beautiful. And so she gets her guy, and of course she's gonna get paid more than everybody else. So um, they're going to giving his fee, and he's like, "We're talking about American currency, right?" So he heads over back home and sees Mary Jane packing her bags, and he thinks she's leaving, but she says he's going to move with him, and he's like, "No, we're gonna stay here. Marriage is his most important thing to him." Again, look at the eyes square. Look at McFarlane's. Just he is a true cartoonist. Who happens to, I think, to do comic books. It's just beautiful. So he's gonna go to school, get a degree, and she pretends to faint, and because she's happy with the news. And so we have one more page here. All right, so we get kind of another vertical panel with the buildings in there. And so it's confirmed, Sid. Yes, sir. Each of these new shot was taken by the same freelance photographer. We got his address. He recently moved, sir, but we may not require direct contact. And these men are in shadows here. Good. Then let's move on this before someone else makes the connection. He may not realize it, but by the end of the week, Peter Parker will belong to us. And here we go. So, to be continued. We're going to be looking at Amazing Spider-Man 304 from 1988, drawn by Todd McFarlane. Now, he does do the art on the cover, but inside, he's actually just a penciler. Joseph Rubinstein will be his inker. During this time, Spider-Man went twice during the summer, so he wasn't able to kind of keep up. It does affect him toward the end of his Amazing Spider-Man run. It just didn't work very well. So, I have a playlist for all things Todd McFarlane. So, I have covered from 314 all the way to the end of his Amazing Spider-Man run. I covered his Spider-Man single run. Then I decided to go back to the beginning because there just is not too much Todd McFarlane available out there. I've covered his Invasion. I've covered Batman Year 2. And the only thing left is Spawn, and he only draws like the first 2 years. Todd McFarlane, although he is still around, is a toy maker. And I understand, I'm a capitalist. Hey, make your money. But still, man, I would love to see him friggin' draw. So, we're at the Daily Bugle, and we got this thing here called Webs. Spider-Man in Action, exclusive Daily Bugle photographs by Peter Parker. And he's like, I don't believe it. I just don't believe it. So, we got our credits here. David Michelinie is the writer. McFarlane pencils. Joseph Rubinstein inks. California Schemin' is the name of our story, our title. So you can see here that he's improving on the webs. So issue by issue, the webs are getting more to what we're used to. How could you do this? I mean, how could you publish a book of my photos without even asking me, says Peter. And so he says, this guy here says they haven't. The book actually won't be published for a while. But as for getting his permission, this lady here, Miss Greeley, she's from the legal staff, and she can explain it here. And she says basically the Daily Bugle owns all the pictures, which is technically true. And Jameson says, you should have read the fine print on the release forms you signed, Parker. We own your work, lock, stock, and negatives. So, but being a naturally generous nature, I might authorize a gratitude fee of, say, $100. And Peter's like, 100? Jameson. So Parker's like, what? A book probably will generate a cover fee. So this guy says, there's another way that he'll benefit. He'll go on tour, promote the book in major cities, and his expenses will be paid for. And in return for cooperations, he'll get partial royalty. If sales are high, as he expects, he could earn as much as $25,000. And he's like, I don't have time to. And then he's like, 25,000. 25,000 is a lot of money, but in 1988, it was probably double that. It was probably like 50. Inflation is a bitch, I tell you. And of course, this guy says we'll also offer Spider-Man $1,000 for appearance fee. So, and Peter's like, wait a minute, do I look like Spider-Man's pal? And then there's a reference to Superman's pal, Jimmy Olsen here. Do you think I can push a button on my watch and he'll come running like a trained puppy? So he says he doesn't know where Spider-Man is, and the only way he was able to get Spider-Man is because he worked his butt off to get those pictures. So he'll do the tour. He's going back to school. It could really use the money, but he'll do it alone. So Jameson says, we'll find Spider-Man. We'll run an ad in the Help Wanted for him at the corporate discount, of course. So Jameson wants to do anything for free. So, all right. So Peter Parker is going to change here. It's kind of funny now that you've seen McFarlane kind of ink himself from 300. So we've seen a few issues. What a difference does an inker make, doesn't it? Just kind of looks So Peter says he doesn't want Spider-Man around. He always gets the spotlight, and it would be nice for Peter to get the spotlight for once. So nice pictures here of Spidey here. So he says how nice it'll be to kind of travel on somebody else's dime and see his name on a billboard or on stores, not on a billboard. So, all right. So these two had a bet, but they didn't shake on it. He's like, I'm not gonna pay you. This guy pulls up a knife. Spider-Man then takes his web and takes the knife out, and he breaks the knife, and he's like, I was having such a nice day. Why spoil it with some frivolous, massive blood loss? He's like, man could have a point. Why don't we stop by the bank, pal? I can get your $5 from the auto teller. So it was all just about $5. So, all right. And so at their new condo / apartment, whatever New York calls it, we call them condominiums in the Midwest, but I know that in New York they call them apartments. So I don't know, whichever. Or she's unpacked her winter coats and accessories. So all this in that huge closet. So, all right. So Peter shows up and kind of startles her. He's excited to tell her about the good news. So And so he says that he's gonna be in Los Angeles in 2 weeks, and she's like, "Great, I haven't been to L.A. in a month." And he's like, "You're going along?" And she says, "Sure, unless you don't want me to." And he's like, "Gosh, no." This is when they had first gotten married, so they're kind of new here to this whole marriage thing. He's like, "Oh, I'm just getting used to being a new husband with her. I'd go all the way to the North Pole with you." So, all right. And so now we're in Queens at Aunt May's house, and Peter is dropping off that book to Aunt May. She's so proud of him. She goes, "You mean I can go to Kmart and I'll see people buying your book?" And Peter, your uncle would be so proud. So just like she is. So Peter's glad that his aunt's happy, and how much they love each other. So now we're in Beverly Hills, and we see a figure kind of jumping through. We're starting to see McFarlane, of course, doing his very famous, although not quite as famous as Frank Miller, silhouette backgrounds and stuff like that. So we see someone kind of breaking in and walking in. So probably a cat burglar of some kind. So, of course, it is the Black Fox. I'm sorry, I stopped here kind of to admire here. You can see a little bit. When I draw, I use this a lot, just kind of like a dry brush method. I really enjoy it. So the Black Fox is gonna stay in this place. Of course, he is just happy that Spider-Man won't be around. And they said that the last time they met was in Web of Spider-Man, which we have not covered at this time. Right now, I'm concentrating on Amazing Spider-Man. I've got an Amazing Spider-Man playlist where I've been covering some stuff from the very beginning, and then I've got a Todd McFarlane kind of playlist. So I haven't merged the two yet, but we'll eventually kind of merge some of these McFarlane ones into um, the Amazing Spider-Man playlist. So he's looking for one final heist so he can get that place in the French Riviera. So he's having some kind of moet, and he's like, Mr. and Mrs. Osgood are very good hosts who are currently vacationing in Geneva, and it seemed like such a waste for the exquisite estate to go so lonely and abandoned for 3 months. So And so he calls the Beverly Hills police and says, "Hey, this is Osgood Hempstead. I neglected to mention that I'm having a guest stay at the house while he's away, a Mr. Fox, and to afford him every courtesy." Who the hell calls the police? All right. Like, why would they care? All right. And so Mary Jane's going through a checklist and drops her keys here, but they're caught here. It says, "Allow me," and he says, I'm Jonathan Caesar from down the hall. Get to know him. He'll be uh, involved in a storyline." So the Jonathan Caesar, as a man who owns this building, he's like, "I've admired your work for a long time, Miss Watson. Perhaps you'd honor me by having tea sometime." And Mary Jane says, "My husband and I would be delighted after we get back from California." So, he says, "Gotta rush. Cab waiting. See you when you get back." He says, "Yes, I'm sure you will." So, again, a future storyline. So, they're taking a private airplane to go to Los Angeles. I doubt that another corporation would give. They'd probably put him in first class, but there's no way they would get a private jet to fly Peter Parker for a friggin' book tour. So anyway, so they get to LAX, and then of course they're in a limousine. So um, she asks if they've been to California before, and Mary Jane's like, "Oh yeah, I posed for a magazine and a cover." in Malibu a few months ago. And he said he was a while back, but he doesn't get to go there as much. So, and she is gonna be here, kind of helping Peter along. She works for the book place. So she's giving them their schedule, and says that there's nothing on the agenda before that, and if there's anything they'd like to do this afternoon. And he's like, oh, he's got these eyes. He's like, oh no. And of course, he's like, listen, I'm as good a sport as the next guy, but so help me. He's all happy. So you guys can guess. They're at Disneyland. So she's like, if you ask me to pose for Donald or Mickey, so went to Disneyland, and he's just having some fun. And so Mary Jane says, all right, let's go get some ears for you. So later that night here, you can see Peter's in a tuxedo and she's wearing some kind of cool 80s dress. So they give their invitations, and he's like, wow, look at all the celebrity. Don't you wish you knew some of it? And she's like, hey, Geraldo, saw your special last week. So, of course, this guy's like, caviar. He's like, fish eggs, huh? He says, don't you have spam on a Ritz? And look at Mary Jane. This guy's like, Uncle Salt the chef. So, all right, so the Black Fox is there as well. So he needs to be there, but instead of busting through the window, he needs to go in, but he needs an invitation. Of course, he says, where there's a will, there's a way. So he bumps into this guy, and he's like, oh, I'm so sorry. And so he walks in, he's like, my invitation, it's gone. But I know I had it, and of course, the Black Fox took it. So he's like, champagne? No thanks. All right. So suddenly he sees, oh no, and he recognizes the Black Fox. So he's like, I'll be right back. And of course, she's mingling with because this is her element. So I love this in the panels. I love it when there's no panels yet. You make a break. I try to do it as often as I can. So, all right. So here's the Black Fox here, and he's gotten rid of the security people, and he's gonna, of course, go steal one of these items, and touches this guy, and of course sprays him, and sees a guy with a gun, and he's hit with or sorry, he shoots, but it's a dart, so it's not really a thing. I love this when I do this also. When I try, if I have like guns go off, I do the same thing as McFarlane does. This is a very cool panel with the silhouette here. I wonder how McFarlane would have inked that himself. So, all right. So he steals this chalice here, which is what he came for. He thinks with this he'll be able to finally retire at the French Riviera. Again, I love this with the dry brush. I know that it's not very McFarlane-y because he's not, of course, inking himself, but I like it. So, of course, Spider-Man's here, and he's like, what the heck? And so he's knocking all these so that Spider-Man gets that. He grabs this thinking it's expensive. He's, of course, made in Hong Kong, so he's like, this isn't fair. He's supposed to be in New York. I'm going to have to use my smoke blasters and get the heck out of here. And he's like, man, I'm too old for this. So he can't see, so he's going to hopefully follow him, use his spider sense, but realizes that as he gets through, that he walks in and everybody's here, and he's like, grah. And she's like, Mary Jane's like, I'd like to introduce you to the Spider-Man. And so Peter, of course, is like, oh man. And she's like, play along. All right. And so he says hi to everybody. So he's about to go get the chalice, but he's you see here, he's go fire. He's like, police. He's like, not even close. The cops be after you, but I'm after the chalice. And right now, old timer, that fancy cup belongs to the Prowler. So, Amazing Spider-Man number 305 from 1988. Very cool cover with the Prowler. And Spider-Man. You still see on his signature he hasn't quite gotten the little scroll that he puts throughout his name, and then he would do these little things on the corner boxes for the comic books. So really cool cover. He does not ink himself in the inside. This was during a period where Spider-Man was being done twice a month, and you can even see the web, sort of work in progress, right? All right, so here we go. McFarlane does not ink all of this issue. I think he inks a page or two. So we're picking up where we left off. We got the Prowler here, getting oh my God, I forgot his name. Not the Black Cat, obviously, because um, the Black Cat is a woman. The Black Fox. It was a black something. So here's the Prowler. Of course, we got McFarlane's big capes, which is a big trope of his. The Prowler is essentially Spawn before Spawn. So David Michelinie or Michelinie. I say Michelinie, but I hear Michelinie. So a lot. So and Todd McFarlane pencils, and then there are 7 inkers, including McFarlane. All right. So as we know, McFarlane Spider-Man is doing like a book tour. Peter Parker is, but so Spider-Man is signing autographs here, and this is supposed to be Glenn Close here. So he goes, "I thought you were terrific in Fatal Attraction." So, uh you can see he's signing everything as Spidey. He's kind of bummed because he wanted Peter Parker to get some fame and fortune instead of Spider-Man. So, and of course, he's promoting that book of photos. I do like this. This is very old-fashioned. This McFarlane still, when you look at his later issues, you see that he really has the McFarlane Spider-Man figured out. He no longer does these round faces, and of course his eyes are even bigger. So, and so we're basically getting a recap as Spider-Man is thinking here. So finally he's thinking of the Black Fox, and so he signs his last autograph and takes off here. Kind of stiff. I probably would blame one of the inkers, but McFarlane did the pencils, so who knows. But this, to compare to a lot of stuff we've seen McFarlane do, this drawing here looks pretty stiff. And man, oh man, when you see McFarlane inking himself, all of a sudden going back to inkers, it just doesn't look very good. So, all right, again, we got this cool cape here. Man, oh man. So the Prowler wants that chalice. And he says, "I need that chalice even if I gotta go through you first." And the Black Fox says he's very practical. He says, "Be my guest." And Prowler just says, "Thanks." And he's about to take it, and here comes Spider-Man busting in. Better with Spider-Man. McFarlane is starting to, like I said, later McFarlane, and when you look at later McFarlane and early McFarlane, what a difference. This man grew leaps and bounds. So these two start to tussle. the Black Fox says, "Oh, they're ignoring me," and you can see him here grabbing the chalice, and then he's gonna leave a smoke bomb here. So, the Prowler also guesses that the guards are up because he hears some sounds here. And he says, "Well, I'll turn them over to you before going after the fox." And Prowler says, "No way, man. I gotta find the fox myself. That chalice is the key to keeping my wife out of prison." And of course, uh, he knows who she is. So, and the Prowler says, "You gotta trust me. You can't let Transcorp pull this off. I'm at the Algonquin Hotel. Meet me here tomorrow morning, and I'll explain everything." He says. So, and of course, the Prowler is Hobby Brown. Um, so, and Spider-Man says he knows he's been straight with him before, so he's got to make a decision fast. And of course, he lets him get away when the guards get there. So, all right, and Peter feels pretty bad again. This doesn't look very good. I mean, even Mary Jane, when you see her eyes, not really looking, it's just looking at the reader more than looking at Peter here. But um, he just says that he really had to let him get away because he's a good person. So and he Peter's like, "I imagine the press, this treasure stolen while Spider-Man signing autograph." And Mary Jane says, "Then your best bet is to get that chalice back. Too bad you can't do anything about it until tomorrow." So he's going into the that Algonquin kin. It's probably Spanish, so the U would be silent, but I still don't know what that is. So McFarlane kind of figuring out the webs here, but the buildings look terrible. But I do like this panel of kind of perspective through his own eyes. So McFarlane definitely was brilliant storyteller, and his compositions were solid. So he's about to go in there and sees the cleaning lady, and he says he was looking for Hobby Brown, and this guy's like, he's checked out, and beat it. So uh, and then Spider-Man feels used. He says, "Someone should pin a sign on my back saying sucker." So, and so we're at the mansion of the Osgood where the Black Fox is currently staying. Again, I have a playlist, so feel free to check out the previous issue. So, um, he says, "Oh, noon already. Keepers like this never used to tire me so, but at least with the profits from the Valencia chalice, my retirement on the French Riviera is assured. I had planned to fence the merchandise in America, but I hadn't counted on Spider-Man or that other maniac. I'll have to settle for a lower rate in the European market. I should have no trouble booking quick passage on a freighter without annoying custom rituals. But I will miss these lovely accommodations. Perhaps I'll take along a memento of my stay. Yes, surely Mrs. Hempstead didn't take all her jewelry. So, uh, once a thief, always a thief. So, all right. So, uh, Mary Jane asks Peter if he wants to go for a swim. He still feels like an idiot. Mary Jane says he really should just let it go. And she tells him the same thing. A lot of people should learn. You can't solve the world's problems. And they begin to have fun after she tells him that, because Peter kind of takes that to heart. So, all right. So we're in Anaheim here, and Peter's signing all these autographs here. So, a lot of people in there. So, she's the publicist, I believe, if I remember, and she says she she says the words Carson. Now I know a lot of people don't know who that is, but older readers will. And so he goes, "We going to Nevada?" No. Somebody else canceled at the last minute. So I was able to book you in his place. So she means Johnny Carson, who was the host of the Tonight Show. Um, and that's the Tonight Show is Jimmy Fallon's show now. So anyway, here he is here, and this would be Ed McMahon. Both of them have passed on. So after the show, the guy here says, "If we'd known such a famous model as Mary Jane Watson Parker was backstage, we'd arrange a walk on. But we do appreciate them coming in short notice." So and Pete's like, "It's ironic. I'm getting famous for Spidey picks, and I can't even make a good living selling them anymore. That's why I'm going back to school in the fall." So um, then they see this commercial from the Transcorp, the future company. So of course we know that that'll probably play something. And so he says, "I gotta do something right now." So um, Spider-Man is at their tower. There are no tall buildings like this in Los Angeles. I mean, there's tall buildings, but not that. Los Angeles is not like New York. If you take a look at the skyline, um, it's it doesn't quite look like that. But you know, all right. And so he's waiting and had a feeling on the Prowler. So of course, Spidey grabs him and he says, "I don't like being lied to, Brown." And he says, "I couldn't take chances, man. We're talking about my wife. What would you have done?" And he thinks, well, if it was Mary Jane. And so he takes off his mask and he says, "Talk." Um, so out of all this, the most important thing is just this first paragraph here. So he says, Mindy, who's the wife, got a bookkeeping job at Transcorp in New York, but when the company was caught in some shady stock deal, they set Mindy up as a patsy with another set of books. So, um, so, um, anyway, I'll just read the whole thing here. So we couldn't afford a hotshot lawyer, so I did what I could do on the streets as a prowler. I found that the only copy of the real books was shipped to the true head of Transcorp, some European dude named Hammer. That would be Justin Hammer. Everything was put on an information chip disguised as one of the jewels of the Valencia chalice. Since that chalice is part of the Goodwill shipment, nobody thinks to search it for contraband. So, love the screen tones being used. I wonder if this is Joseph Rubinstein here, who's putting the um, screen tones. So, if I don't get that chip and prove what really went on, I'm going to be talking to Mindy through wire mesh for the next 20 years. And Spider-Man asks him if he's got a plan. So Prowler puts his mask back on. He says he's eavesdropping on Troy Fishburne, who's the head of the West office. So he asks if he's going to stop him, and Spider-Man says, "No, I'm going to join you." Great panel here, absolutely. And so down they go. Again, Los Angeles is not quite as they have skyscrapers, it's just not like this. So here we go. They're gonna start to listen in. So Fishburne tells his men to double check everything, doesn't want to overlook. The guy's phone is ringing. Fishburne, "You sure? Excellent. You know what to do." And then he speaks to his people. He says troubles are almost over. The thief has booked passage on a steamer departing Long Beach in 30 minutes. And since we've had hit teams stationed at every dock in the area since the robbery, the Valencia Chalice should be ours again in 35. Uh, so off they go, and Prowler's like, hanging on with the web. So that's he's like, oh, you do this all the time. So all right. So here comes the Black Fox, and of course those people are there, and he throws the briefcase at them, and then throws some kind of light thing, something that would create like a flashbang. So, and there's the ship. Love this friggin' panel here. Absolutely amazing. A full moon. That is an awesome panel. So Spider-Man hears the gunshots, says they're too late, and Prowler says not yet, and then look over there. And so Spider-Man says he'll nab the fox, and Prowler says I'll teach those two-legged mutts how to heal. So off he goes, and he knocks this rail thing down and kind of traps them, and then hits them with like an energy beam of some sort. And so he's gonna go and try to help Spider-Man, and Spider-Man shows up to nab him, and then the fox says, look, everyone is Spider-Man. And of course everyone's here wanting an autograph, and the fox is gonna try to get away. He's like, wow, how clever he is. No one's gonna lay a hand on you. And of course here they had. So Spider-Man nabs him, and he's like, oh, I can't go to jail. I'm old. It'll kill me. I'll never steal again. I swear on my mother's grave. And of course, Spider-Man, who is a sucker, says, man, at his age, jail could be dangerous. I do have the chalice. And he's like, I'm on my mother's grave. And he says, if I see you again, I'll mail it to the FBI piece by piece. And he says, you're a saint, says the Prowler. And the Spider-Man says, sir, I'm a sap. Yes, you are. And so he got everything he needed, and they were able to clear the Prowler's wife. So kind of wrap up everything. And of course, that this airplane is the Prowler, who says, man, promising not to steal in my mother's grave. And then he says, my mom will get such a laugh when I tell her. So the old guy still has his mom. So real quick here. So Todd's coming back, inking himself, because Spider-Man during this time was twice a month. Now, the only thing I've always liked this image, but then I realized that this part should not be solid black, in my opinion. It should be like this one here, like with this little bit of blue showing in there. Because to me, if you did this like this, you should do that. That's just my opinion. Obviously, I'm not an artist of the caliber of Todd McFarlane, who is great. This is an homage to Action Comics #1. I have every single one of these issues in near mint condition, because I have the originals that are all terrible and destroyed that I had, and then I've gone back and rebought them before COVID, so it didn't cost me an arm and a leg like it does. So great cover here. And so hubbugged, and like I said, we got Todd McFarlane returning as artist. So he's yelling at paparazzi here, and you can see here he's webbed his camera. So Michelinie, David Michelinie, or Michelinie, depends. Todd McFarlane, Rick Parker, Bob Sharon, Jim Salicrup, and Tom DeFalco. Jim Shooter has been fired off Marvel Comics. Jim Salicrup, by the way, used to be the Uncanny X-Men editor after Roger Stern before he moved on to other projects, and I believe he's now editor-in-chief of some company. So, all right, so love this. When I said no interviews, I meant no interviews. So, Spider-Man is a bit of a celebrity since that book came out. As I mentioned, I have a playlist. Check it out. So the camera guy is like, we just wanted a statement on that book of photos. So that's the one that they're publishing here. And he says, you want a statement? Talk to the man who took the pictures. His name's Peter Parker, and he's a lot more sociable than I am. So we've been, part of the issue has been that uh, he is actually jealous of himself. So he wants Peter Parker to get a little bit more credit. I love this guy kind of smiling here. You can see the Todd mannerisms are starting to take. He's feeling more comfortable inking himself here. We don't have all the ticks that he's famous for, but we're getting there here. And this guy's like, the media has a right to know. And he's like, what about my privacy? So, um, and so he moves this guy out of the way here, because he was blocking his exit. And so off he goes. And one of Todd's, you're going to start to see, by the way, the webbing's getting so much better. Um, you can see here he's drawing the building backgrounds and everything. So, great stuff here. Absolutely, absolutely wonderful. So, all right. So this part is photo stats. So you can see this part is drawn, and then this part is the photo stats. So here we get a little bit of introspective that he's wants Peter Parker to get a little bit of the spotlight that Spider-Man's always taking here. So absolutely awesome. So, oh, look at all these poses. And just think, and McFarlane's just getting started. Oh, I know why he went to Image, but I'm just so sad that we go. And I've always said not Jim, Frank Miller does great vertical panels, but Todd McFarlane I think is the second best at doing doing vertical panels. So he's gonna change back to Peter, um, and just can't still realize that he has a home now to go to with a wife. So he, of course, is recently married during this time. So, and we got the villain for this issue, or this humbug guy walking through them, and they're kind of bullying him. These kids are bullying him. So you can see here he's got a thing from Radio Shack and Army Surplus. So he's a electronic guy, and he's out of jail now, and he's gonna start plotting his revenge, and gonna call himself the Humbug. So I don't know if he has appeared more in modern times. I think he showed up a little bit during these times, but not too much. So again, Tom McFarlane drawing some backgrounds. Love the silhouette of the buildings with the Bedford Towers, which is where I believe he's staying. Yep, right there, the Bedford Tower condominium. So, and so he's knocking on the door. Mary Jane's like, "Did you lose your key?" And then he opens it up. He says his hands are full because he's holding a flower for her, a rose here. So, he they're embracing. They're newlyweds. He gets a knock on the door, and Jonathan Caesar, he'll have a prominent in our next arc. He'll be the main antagonist here. Um, Spoiler alert, I guess I should have said, but these comic books are over 30 years old, so um so he's knocking on the door and wanted to say welcome her back from returning to Los Angeles, and brings these flowers. This is his butler, and Peter's like, oh, with just the one flower here, so you can see him tossing it here. So he invites him to a party. She says she's going to Cleveland on Thursday, but she'll be back by Friday night. And he goes, excellent, I'll be expecting you. Both of you, of course. So he takes his leave, and you can see Peter here. Gee, should I throw up now or wait till later? And she's all like, oh. So he's going to go, you're going to put those on a vase? He goes, nope, they go to the cleaning lady. His flower goes in the vase because she believes it's more important. And of course, they're going to have a little piece here. And they're like, have I told you I love you? Not for minutes. So, oh. And so the black cat has returned here. She was in a relationship with Spider-Man. They broke up, but she's back, and so she's gonna pay him a visit, and sees the skylight, comes up, and he's like, he startles this guy. She's like, where's Peter Parker? Beats me, lady. My name's Hal. I just moved in a couple of weeks ago. So, and the Felix, the cat. So this guy's like, I knew I should have stayed in Brooklyn. So I love this part here. Spider-Man must have moved because that apartment holds too many memories. He couldn't stand living there without me. That means he still loves me. All the more reason to find him. So great. Love just doing things in silhouette. It's so much easier here. So we're in Cleveland here. And so he's going to do a speech and an autograph session for his book here. So Peter is nervous here. This guy comes in and asks if he could sign his copy of Webb's. And he says he doesn't mean to be pushy, but he has to leave early and hate missing his autograph. And says, no problem, here you go. And turns out he had all these comic books here when he drops it here. I thought it was going to be, he was going to serve them with something. I haven't read these in forever, so I'm reading them for the first time in years as I go along with you guys. I don't look at these ahead of time, so I get just as surprised as you. So I haven't probably read these in 20 years or more, so it's part of the reason I quit collecting new comics, because I just don't read them that much anymore. So the guy's going to be selling his comic books to pay for tuition, and thanks him for the autograph. So here he is signing. Again, silhouettes here with just a hint. And so that this was the comic book that he was looking, and Mary Jane bought it for him. And then this is the editor, Jim Salicrup here, who Todd McFarlane put in. This is so cartoony. It's just wonderful. Todd McFarlane is such a good artist. I really miss his drawing. I truly do. He practically has retired from drawing. Very sad. So Chicago here. And so this guy's going in to see. His name is Mr. Carson, I guess. So he goes to this guy and says he has to take his place. It's nothing personal. He says hostile takeovers are nothing to joke about. He says he's not joking, and this takeover won't be hostile. He's going to give him the company. And the guy says, I'm going to call security. And he stops him from calling security. And suddenly he turns and shoots this guy with a dart gun. Interlude over. Now, we'll be seeing what is happening. So you can see here the fact that he's turned into him. You can probably guess who he is. So, all right. So now we go into this humbug character. Love the McFarlane capes, even on a silly little guy. You saw a little bit when you had the Prowler on the last issue we cover here. So he was an entomology professor. So, all right. I'd love again. So, look at this here. So apparently this guy was from Web of Spider-Man or something. So that's all right. It's really not important. So we're going to move along. Just, again, another vertical panel that McFarlane, just small here, puts him in between these. So, love the capes. And so, You see here, he's creating a whirlpool here, and turns out that was a girl's locker room, and he did not realize that, and so they're all throwing his stuff at him, and he's running away. So once again, New York City, always a full moon, always. So Aunt May was visiting the kids here, and Peter says, "Can't you stay any longer? Look at the flower with the vase there." And she says, "Nah, you guys have a party to go to." She just wanted to say hi. So, and to tell Peter how proud she is of him. She's proud of the place, proud of the book he's published, the career he's chosen, just thrilled. And she's happy that he's going back to school. So, um, I do like, or I like the fact that they have de-aged Aunt May a little bit. I've always thought that Aunt May would only be like 20 years older, 25 at the most. Let's say she was, but his parents would have been. Uncle Ben was the older brother, but they made them look like these grandparents, and that they were much younger. You know, they Aunt May. So let's say Peter Parker is in his 50s, or no, I'm sorry, in his 30s, or maybe late 20s, let's say 28, 29, 30, which is about the age that they kind of keep him. Then Aunt May would be, let's so 20 years more, so she'd be 58. So let's give her, let's say she was a little bit older than her parents, she'd still be in her low 60s. I mean, and look at how they drew her. So one of the things that I do like is the fact that they de-aged her here. So he forgot to. She says something about an assistant grant yet, and then he forgot about it. He didn't turn in the application. So, um, Mary Jane says, "Take care of it. I'll go ahead and into the party and make excuses." So, Peter, of course, is starting to get jealous of Jonathan Caesar. He's got good reasons to, but that'll be in the next arc. So he says he should go as Spider-Man because it'll be faster, and he trusts Mary Jane, but Jonathan Caesar not so much here. Good embrace here. Todd McFarlane is such a good storyteller. So again, we're at Empire State University, which is supposed to be like Columbia. Well, it's a state university. I don't know stuff. I don't live in New York City, so or I'm from New York. So anyway, this dude breaks in, and so he's gonna try to break into this big old safe, and he causes all this noise. Of course, Spider-Man happened to be going by, and he goes in and sees this guy, and so we are about to have a little silly supervillain fight here. And you can see here, the guy jumps out. So, and Spider-Man catches him again. Vertical panels. How amazing is that? So here comes the police. Great. I mean, goodness gracious. This is why McFarlane. Nobody drew like this. Nobody. Jim Lee and Todd McFarlane. Jim Lee comes a little bit later, but Todd McFarlane revolutionized. This is what started this whole 90s movement. It's just Todd McFarlane and Jim Lee did it well. Other people not so much. So the humbug here is going to try to get rid of these cops. Here comes Spider-Man trying to make sure nobody gets hurt. In retrospect, this isn't a good pose, but it just, you look at it so quickly as you're kind of reading by, you can't tell. But when you fixate on it, you're like, not one of his better ones, but that's all right. So, you can see here sort of like the cover, and again, Spider-Man doing a reverse silhouette here. Oh, Spider-Man, McFarlane doing a reverse silhouette here, and so now he's in the entomology lab, which is bugs, and he says hi to one of his bugs, and so he's like, this lady here is like, hey, I got a thesis. I don't need a prankster to interrupt. So Spider-Man shows up. He's like, lady, get out of the way. So, he grabs the humbug, now grabs that lady. Again, vertical panels, McFarlane and Frank Miller. So, of course, he's like, okay. And so he grabs this, these roaches. And he's like, no, 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 I give up. So, you can see he even takes up the glove. So, and Spider-Man goes, if I ever write my autobiography, I'll think I'll leave this chapter out. And the humbug is like, how could you do this, you fiend? So we're back to the Bedford Towers here, and I again love how they silhouette the towers, leaving it separate from the other to create some depth and distance here. So we got all the guys. So this guy's making the moves on Mary Jane here, and he's like, doesn't realize that she's married, and Peter's like, hello, you're interrupting, you're bothering my wife. He kicks, and of course he hurts himself. So Caesar tells his people to get rid of that guy that was bothering her. Again, great. I love it when you can do things simply for time's sake. You don't have to draw everybody. Just I love this so much. So Caesar apologizes for the incident, and so you can see here Caesar. This will be good. Like I said, it's the next arc that will be coming up after the next issue. So Mary Jane says we better call it a night. We just got back from Cleveland this morning, and Peter has another signing on Chicago on Monday. And he'll say, my building will certainly seem empty without both of you. So, it says, it's just Peter this time. I have a modeling gig Monday. Good night. And she's like, be well, dear lady. And by Monday night, you'll be mine. So, and of course, we now get that Chicago, and it turns out that the person that was impersonating that guy was the Chameleon. So that'll be on the next issue here. Amazing Spider-Man 307 from 1988. During this time, they were going twice a month. X-Men eventually would also go on sale twice a month. This was during the summer months. They believed the kids would have, because there was no school, kids would have more disposable income to buy more comic books. And so they got their bigger titles to do that. So this is by David, I say Michelinie, but some people say Michelinie. I hear Todd McFarlane saying Michelinie. So here we have the Chameleon. This is, of course, drawn by Todd McFarlane. Look at this. So McFarlane was really coming into his own, and look at these little dashes that he was putting through. McFarlane, of course, worked with a pen, not so much of a brush, but he used a would you call it a quill? I think a quill maybe is what it's called. So, all right, here's our credits with David Michelinie, or Michelinie, and Todd McFarlane. The Thief Who Stole Himself. So, we've got Peter and Mary Jane out in a grocery store out in New York. So you hear somebody says, hey, wait up, hold it, stop. And so look at this. It's kind of cool because it's not your typical super action area, but still. McFarlane, of course, very famous for doing all these ticks, as I like to call them. So, and it's this lady, and sees Mary Jane here, and she goes, "You're her, ain't ya? You're the cover of Shape. I recognize you when ya pass the magazine rack," she says. "Could you give me your autograph, honey? Otherwise the kids will never believe I met an honest-to-gosh model in the veggie aisles at Grittisdale." And Mary Jane says, "My pleasure." So and she looks at him and goes, "Say, you look kind of familiar too." And Peter goes, "Oh, really? Well, perhaps you caught me on the Tonight Show last week, or maybe saw my picture on the back cover of Webs, the books of Spider-Man photos I took. I am, um, Peter Parker," he says. And she goes, "No, you ain't. You're Irvin Sprinkle. We went to PS 62 together." And he's like, but I'm Peter Parker." And she says, "Changed your name, did ya? Too good for your old friends. You always were uppity, even in the third grade. Humph." And Peter's like, "Ah, fame." And then he sighs here. "Come on, Irving. We better get these groceries home." McFarlane is very good at these vertical panels. I always comment how good he is. Him and Frank Miller and these vertical panels. So they're, of course, during this time living in the Bedford condos. I do have a playlist for the Todd McFarlane, and I did go out of order, and I did the later part first and decided to go back in there. So um, here we have again a vertical panel. Um, and so in the kitchen here, they're putting away their groceries. They're, of course, living in Manhattan during this time in the Upper East Side, but it won't last long. So, as those of you who have been following this will see again, look at the playlist. I actually started with issue 314, and then after I was done, I decided to go back. But I have covered all of McFarlane's Spider-Man. I also have a Hulk playlist, and feel free to check that out. I'm currently covering the Peter David Todd McFarlane era. So, all right. So Mary Jane says, "Better put the sodas in the fridge, Pete. We want them to get cold by." And all of a sudden, you hear the doorbell. "Ah, Marty got the doorbell fixed. I'll get it." And she says, "Hi, Jonathan." And Peter, of course, says, "Jonathan Caesar again." And Peter's like, "Sheesh, being neighborly is one thing, but this guy's over here more than I am." So he opens the door so he can take a look here. And he says, and she says, "What's up?" And Jonathan says, "I just wondered if I could do anything for you while Peter was in Chicago at that book signing." And Mary Jane says, "He doesn't leave till tonight, Red Eye Express, but I'll let you know. Anything, my dear, anything at all," he says. And he goes, "Oh," and of course Peter's like, "Darn, he spotted me. Tell me, Mary Jane, how tall is Peter anyway?" And she says, 5'10". "Why?" "Oh, nothing. Good day." Because of course Peter's using his powers to go through. Great panel, great stuff. Man, oh man, I really miss McFarlane drawing. I truly do. I know. I'm not gonna get on someone's case for trying to make coin and money, but man, oh man, he's got enough. Go back to drawing, my man. It's what people want. So, and Mary Jane says, "You were listening, weren't you? You're jealous." And of course, Peter's like, "Don't be silly. There isn't a jealous bone in my body." But of course, he's like crushes this thing. He's like, maybe a little one in my right hand." Heh, as that exploded on him. So, and of course, Jonathan Caesar is obsessed with Mary Jane, as we will be seeing soon. "Really, Tiger, you should know by now that you're tops in my books. I mean, I don't go around marrying every Tom, Dick, and Corbin, you know? So forget about Jonathan Caesar. I promise." He's nothing to worry about. So, of course, he is obsessed with Mary Jane. So, again, look at these ticks. He just did not see people drawing like this way back then. So, very cool. And so now we're in Chicago here. And Peter's looking from the top of what was at that time called the Sears Tower. I do not know what it's called right now, but um, Peter's like, "Wow." And his she's with the book people, and she's like, "Those were my sentiments when I first came to the Sears Tower too, Peter. It's the world's tallest building, and the sky deck is 103 stories up. It is no longer the tallest building in the world, but it was for a short time. And Peter's like, some view. I'm glad your publicity firm was able to find time in my schedule for a little sightseeing, Ginny. And she says, our pleasure. Do you have anything? Do you have something to celebrate? Sorry, we do have something to celebrate after all, she says. Getting your book into display windows at Crocs and Brentano's was quite a coup. Ready for the follow-up book signing? And Peter says, lead on, Miss Edward. I'm always ready to meet my adoring public, he says. So, I really think McFarlane is so clever with the way he cartoons. And he is a cartoonist. I truly mean that. Other people, perhaps not, but look at the way he composed. I mean, this is cartooning. Um, so... And this lady says, I'd like you to sign it to my darling Gloria. Love and kisses, Petey. And this, just for a lark, okay? Pretty please. And he's like, right. There you go. Next. So he's signing the book. I'm your number one fan, Mr. Parkhurst. I read all your books. Could you sign with my special pen? I get all my autographs in gold ink. And he says, I'd be glad to. And suddenly, oop, and he it just goes everywhere, and he's like, you pressed too hard, you ruined it. I sacked fries for a month to buy that stupid book, and now you've and she's like, the lady's like, please sir, accept this replacement copy courtesy of Wilton Brook Publishers. Okay, good thing I carry a spare gold pen. And of course Peter's like, ugh, my adoring public. So we're elsewhere in Chicago still. So this whole story does take place, or the rest of this issue with Spider-Man will take place in Chicago here. And it says here, the offices of William Duquesne. And he goes, I'll be leaving now, Miss Keller. And she says, yes, sir. And she thinks here, I don't get it. Mr. Duquesne's been canceling appointments, taking off early, seeing people linked to organized crime. It's almost like he's turned into somebody else. And so inside a limousine here, yes sir, the tapes you wanted are right next to the wet bar. Excellent, Albert, good job. So he's watching these are video cassettes. So, and the driver goes, must be some kind of midlife thing. The boss used to have me rent that racy stuff. Now all he wants are Lon Chaney flicks. So McFarlane didn't use screen tones. He actually would draw these marks himself. So and so the guy gets home here, and he actually has himself trapped in there. Of course, if you saw the cover, you know that he's the chameleon. And he says, comfortable, Mr. Duquesne? Is the glucose drip feeding properly? And he mumbles here, and he's like, good. I'm afraid I still require the respectability and context your identity provides, he says. But I promise to give it back when I'm through. And he thinks here, however, says there's nothing more I can do until tomorrow. He's going to play a video cassette. I might as well relax in a manner that only the chameleon can. So... And during this time, I believe he had some surgery so that he could manipulate his face. So it's odd though that I should need to relax, and that I would still have so far to go before reaching my ultimate goal, especially when you consider how far I've come, he thinks. So here we're gonna get a bit of his origin here. But then I was so young when I began, so impulsive, and though my first efforts were sound enough, using disguises to obtain secret plans and government documents, I soon lost direction and turned to outright criminal pursuits, stealing paintings and such to support an elevated lifestyle. So I even laid my hatred of Spider-Man blind me, put me in unnecessary danger out of some silly macho urge for revenge. And so we're seeing here some of the parts here: Spider-Man 1, Spider-Man 80, and Spider-Man 186. And so um, he's you see here he's changing his face again. It was only months ago that I regained focus that I decided to dedicate my life to my original dream and to make the ultimate commitment to that dream. I used what wealth I'd accumulated to finance the development of a unique serum, one that altered my very flesh, making it featureless but completely malleable. That can't be good. So, the application of controlled electrical stimuli could then mold that flesh into a perfect likeness of anyone. So it must also, with that surgery, create melanin. So, um, anyway, likeness of anyone I wish to impersonate. True, I could no longer hide my face, but I could steal any other face I chose instantly. And with the addition of a special costume made of memory material that also responds to electrical impulses to alter appearance, I was almost ready. And so you see this bit. The belt touch has a computerized belt control system, including mini generator programmed with hundreds of facial patterns, and a video scanner that allows me to add any face I see to my repertoire. I now have the power, the purpose, and the mobility to bring about a long delayed destiny. So he's switching to another film here. The utter destruction, politically, economically, and strategically, of the United States of America. I swore they'd suffer for what they did to me so many years ago, and that payment begins tomorrow. So that's what he's up to. Great panel composition, a big splash page, and then McFarlane just fitting the other stuff in here. Very, there's a reason he was so popular. So, and so now we're in another area here, the Midtown Convention Center, which must be this building here. And so the publicist says, excited, Peter? Not everyone gets named an honorary citizen of Chicago by the mayor himself. We're lucky they wanted to tie the expo with our publicity campaign. And Peter says, I'm more excited about the expo's guest speaker, Dr. Edmund Devicek, is the country's leading expert on superconductivity. The government usually keeps him under lock and key, says Peter. Again, look at that cartooniness. Very cool. And so here we have the chameleon again. Dr. Debevik is about to begin his lecture, which means it's time for me to go to work. And so he looks at the guard here, does that little beep sound that he presses in here. Now, if those locals I hired are as reliable as I was told they'd be, and so they're looking at their watch too. Okay, boys, we're paid a small fortune to provide a distraction. So let's start distracting. And so shooting. Hey, everyone, hands up. This is a robbery. Call for backup and form a cordon around Dr. Debevik. Don't leave your post unless. And he goes, no, you men handle those terrorists. Shoot to kill. I'll protect Debevik. Captain Turner, I thought you were coordinating things back at headquarters. And he says, I was, but I decided I could be more effective here. And he's got a smile. And look at that. It's shoot to kill, of course. He doesn't want anyone. Hey, assassinate the assassins. So, of course, all the people start running. I love how McFarlane just does the figures, and it works. It works so wonderfully. So, Peter pushes her to safety, and she's concerned about him, but of course, he's gone. And so we actually get our first appearance of Spider-Man in this issue. So we've gone all these pages without Peter, and here we go. And so he changes to Spider-Man, and out he goes. Look at that. McFarlane poses. Just he would create these amazing poses, just so wonderful. So here we go. Um, gets rid of this guy. Gets here we've got, of course, his spaghetti webbing as it was um, described by DeFalco, and so he traps this guy here on the webbing. And so here comes the third guy and is running away, and of course Spider-Man intercepts him. And look at this, bam! Just awesome, awesome stuff. So of course, this guy goes, "Where's Zebovic? Captain Turner took him toward the Manus area." And this guy says, "That's impossible. I just talked to Turner on the radio. He's still downtown." And so Spider-Man, of course, hears that and says, "Methinks I detect a you the rat." And so, of course, the um, chameleon puts him in handcuffs here and takes his identity. And he says, "With your identity, I can get into your lab, steal your formulas, then distribute them to various foreign powers," he says. So that is his goal. "America's edge on superconductivity race will be shattered." Of course, he says, "You'll never get away with it. The authorities will find me, perhaps, but will they be able to identify the pieces?" And so he hits this little doohickey here. You can see the plick. Again, a little vertical panel here. And of course, Spider-Man comes right through. He says, "Freeze, hold it right there." And Spider-Man's like, "Must have hit that door too hard. I'm seeing double." So, Spider-Man, we meet again. Though I suppose it is fitting that you should be part of my triumphs. And he's like, "Two Debovics, meet again." "Oh no, Chameleon." And the real Debovic says, "Watch out, young man. He's got a bomb. Bomb? Bomb." So again, look at the vertical panel. Just so awesome. And so he puts a tracker on Chameleon and webs the bomb and then gets in the way here to make sure. Again, look at this wonderful explosion. So this guy goes, "What's going on in here?" And he tells the doctor, "You tell him." And so Spider-Man's gonna go after Chameleon again. Look at this. Look at this. How McFarlane would conduct these panels here. So, or these poses. Very cool. Very cool. And so I don't understand. No matter where I run, what identity I assume, he keeps following me. I lose him for a moment, but then he finds me. How? And so he's slowing down. Now's my chance to. Oh no, that cop thinks I'm an innocent citizen. Stay back. Thanks for your help, officer, but I'd rather have your gun. And so he hits him from behind. "You, all of you, into the building with me now." And of course, this guy's like, "Do what he says, Lucy." And so, look at the movie Rambo 2, most likely. From the way he tossed that bomb at Dr. Debovic, the chameleon wouldn't hesitate to kill those hostages. I've got to hold off to think. And so, here he's got these, and he goes, "Still don't know how the wall crawler keeps following me. Could something be wrong with my disguise, my face?" And then he goes, "My clothing." And of course, he finds the little doohickey. He's like, "Well, well, well." And he goes, "That's all I know, Sergeant. My advice would be, don't shoot. He's letting us go. Let the area clear. Move on." And so they go inside. He goes, "Nothing except this. He must have found it, realized its purpose, and changed appearance again, and escaped with his own hostages. I followed the chameleon's plan, but it looks like I'll have to capture him some other time." So, and of course, he ended up taking the bus. And so, and so Chameleon says, "Fortunately, I've added patience to the focus in my new philosophy. To wit, if at first you don't succeed, find the nearest airport." So, and so we're back here, and Jeannie says, "Where the blazes have you been? I was worried sick." And Peter says, sorry, Ginny, I thought I'd take a few snaps, get started on webs too. And Ginny says, I admire your diligence, Peter. I sure wish you could get Spider-Man to announce his appearances. We could have gotten a lot of mileage out of this. And he says, all right, I'll see what I can do, says Peter. And he wonders, I wonder if Mary Jane has days like this. Of course, we are about to get to the next story arc is going to start here after this. So Mary Jane is doing a modeling gig, and the camera guy's, okay, MJ, that's a wrap. And she's like, ooh, long day, huh, Sandy? You bet. But I'll bet Bloomy sells a lot of swimsuits, so. And she's back in her apartment. She says, I'm going to sleep for a month. Well, maybe I'll get up for a while when Peter, and she goes, that smells cigarettes. But Peter and I don't smoke. Someone else has. Maybe I better call and of course, we'll turn the lights on for you, ma'am. Wouldn't want you bumping into anything in the dark. And she says, who are you? They're friends of mine. You can see friends are in quotations here. And we get here, Jonathan, how did you get in? And she says, as owner of the building, obtaining a passkey wasn't difficult. Of course, vertical panels. And she goes, but what do you want? And he says, what want? Why, what I've always wanted for many years, what I've planned so meticulously to obtain, as he smiles. In essence, dear lady, what I want is precisely what I have now. You. And look at this panel. Oh, look at all this detail. Look at all these ticks. There's a reason McFarlane was. And so, Jonathan Caesar is kidnapping Mary Jane. So, here we go. So, what does Spider-Man discover in a Brooklyn grave? Find out in 2 weeks. So, alrighty. So, we got Amazing Spider-Man 307. I was like, what the heck did I just read here? Sorry, I had a momentary lapse in German. By David Michelinie or Michelinie, and drawn beautifully by Todd McFarlane. Look at this here. Man, don't you guys miss Todd? Oh, I truly do. Man, he doesn't even do covers anymore. That's the thing about one of the reasons I don't read Spawn. I never have. I looked at the pretty pictures that he would do, but that's it. But man, oh man, I was even buying it when he does the dumb covers, but he doesn't even do that anymore. So I haven't bought Spawn since he did that, his last the last cover that he did for them. So anyway, like and subscribe, and I do thank you for listening. Goodbye.